Hi, welcome to another travel video by Gary Rose Travels. Please click like and subscribe for more videos, and also visit GaryRoseTravels.com, and you can now find Gary Rose Travels on Facebook. So this video is the last video in my budget 2019 series for travelling in India. And in this video you're going to learn all about the approximate and associated costs of doing stuff in India. I'm going to be giving you a breakdown of expected costs for things like historical sites and palaces and national parks and things like that, because very often we've found that there's quite a lot of misinformation, sometimes in the guidebooks and sometimes online. So hopefully this will give you a good reference for different costs and things, and a good approximation of what to expect. Also, I will be teaching you how to save money when you visit national parks and sites of interest, and also I will be giving you some really valuable information about how to make your money go further and what to do with that extra money that you have saved. How to travel like Gary Rose. So in this post you'll be learning how to see the very best stuff for less. So first of all, now, with the rising costs in standards of living in India, with the rising costs associated with that, the cost of doing stuff, getting into places, entrance fees, park entrance fees, even camera fees and guide fees and things like that, has risen quite dramatically over the last few years. Certainly when about 5 or 6 years ago when I started going to India, and about 10 years prior to this when Gary started going to India, the cost for getting into many of the major attractions was a few hundred rupees. It was really quite affordable. You didn't really have to dip into your daily budget too much. You could just afford to go. However, with the rising cost of living and the rising standard of living, the associated costs of getting into places has risen dramatically. No longer can you expect to get into one of the major sites for a few hundred rupees, especially in Rajasthan and especially in the south. You're looking between kind of 500 and 800 rupees per ticket. And if you are travelling on rather a meagre budget, that is quite a large chunk out of your daily budget. So how to you can't really avoid paying these costs, because you want to go in and see the best stuff, you want to get the best pictures and have the best experiences, because after all you've travelled all the way to India, which is far from pretty much anywhere really. So you've travelled all the way to India and you don't want to get there and have to miss out. So what to do really. So first of all, if you remember in my previous videos and in my budget post you will have read, hopefully on Gary Rose Travels, you will remember that I set out a budget of 2,260, and that was then reduced slightly to 2,150 for a single backpacker. Now, the reason, I did mention it in the previous video and in the post, however, I'll go into it in depth now. The reason that I did this was because that small amount of difference in between the two figures, between your actual daily budget and your base rate budget, which is what you've been living off, is about 110 rupees, I think. So that 110 rupees, hopefully you have been saving that up every day. Perhaps you've had to use it a little bit, but hopefully you should have saved it every day. And now you have that extra money saved up to do stuff. So hopefully you will have a nice amount saved. Perhaps you'll have, 5,000, 6,000 rupees or whatever saved up, and you can now put this towards doing stuff. So even if you want to get into places, you want to pay for national parks and guides and things, you won't have to eat into your daily budget because you will have this extra money saved. Now this extra money is what Gary and I like to refer to as the float. So if you hear us talking about the float, this is the amount. It's a nice amount of money that we have extra. I suppose you could call it spending money as well. So it's basically the money which is not included in your basic daily living. It's all the money for doing stuff. And because this is extra money that you've accumulated, that you've looked after, don't have to eat into your budget. And that is how we get to go into the very best places while staying on budget, because it's all extra money. So yeah, that is the float explained. So with the costs now to get into places, you're looking for historical sites between 500 and 800 rupees. This is widespread, as I said. It is in Rajasthan, it is in the south, it is also in the other parts. I'm just using those as examples because they're the most popular places. Also with the privately owned sites, like the palace in Bundi is privately owned, and because of the rise in living costs, the Maharaja who owns that, he has to put his prices up. Now, there is more conservation work by the Archaeological Survey of India, who are like the National Trust of India. There is more conservation work and restoration work going on across the board, which is fantastic. However, it's not just unique to the Archaeological Survey. It's government-owned places, it's privately owned places, it's national parks, it's all these things. There's a huge increase. What I'd recommend you do is you do your research fully before you go, and don't rock up hoping to get in places for cheap, because it simply doesn't exist anymore. Also, a lot of places are a lot more staunch on tickets. I mean, it's better infrastructure, it's better run, you get better guides, perhaps you get the audio headsets, perhaps you get better information when you get there, the layout is better, there's more for tourists, there's more information, which is great. However, all this does come at cost, so don't rock up somewhere and expect to be able to get in for a few hundred rupees, because those days basically have gone. Now, in terms of if you're travelling on a much harsher budget, I know that the budget that we suggested was, you know, it is still a low amount of money, but some people do travel for cheaper. However, what we have found in the past is many of these people, many of these travellers and backpackers, they don't actually get into anywhere because of this the rise in costs. So if you've made all the effort to get to Hampi, or to get to you know, places in the south, especially perhaps places in Rajasthan, you've made all the effort to get to India and you've got there and you can't afford that, that's a real kick in the teeth. And very often, you know, we've met many budget backpackers who have kind of had to just sit outside or just view them from, you know, take some pictures of the outside, because, you know, sadly they can't afford to get in because they haven't done the research, because they are travelling on such a meagre budget. I mean, you can travel on a meagre budget in India, but as I've said over the last few videos and posts that I've written, these days are slowly dwindling. So if you want to see stuff, stick to the script, stick to what we've advised. So we spoke about how to accumulate that money. Now, when you visit national parks, we've got a few hints and tips in order to stay on track and on budget. So I'm going to use Ranthambore as a good example, because it's one of the prime parks, it's really good to visit, and also you don't have to spend an absolute fortune. So Ranthambore is a prime tiger park in India. It's absolutely fantastic. There's some fantastic viewing and photography. There's lots of other animals there aside from tigers, but if you want to see wildlife, head to Ranthambore. It's fantastic. So when we got there, we didn't stay in one of the upmarket places. We didn't stay in one of the backpacker orientated places that were recommended in our guidebook. We stayed in a budget, I'm going to say an Indian guest house. You know, it wasn't specifically for Westerners. It was just a very run-of-the-mill, very pleasant, very clean and tidy, efficiently run guest house. And because we said we'd stay for a number of days, again, we got a good deal on the room. We also visited in the shoulder season. Well, it was quite more the off season, to be honest. It was very hot. But if you want a good deal on a room, try and visit in the shoulder season, the off season, if you can put up with wet, or you can put up with the hot. Also, in the hot season, it's quite good for viewing animals because they're more lethargic because it's so hot. So that's another way that you can save money. Now, because we rocked up and we stayed for a number of days, I think it was like 5 nights. We didn't go into the park each day. There's a fort and a temple complex inside the park that you can visit without needing a ticket, because pilgrims head there. We took a shared jeep up to the because there's shared jeeps that leave from the village centre every day. We took a shared jeep up the hill. It's a really nice drive. We saw bears on the way. We saw deer. We saw peacock. We saw monkey. It was fantastic, and we got that for free. You know, we got that for free viewing, which was fantastic. We got some lovely pictures, and we went up to the palace a few times. And the abandoned fort we got in for we got in for free, and we just paid for the shared jeep. We had a lovely time. We did that a few times, and the other days we went into the park. To get into the park, we didn't get in for less, but we organised it ourselves. We got a ride up to the gate early morning. We booked our tickets ourselves. We didn't take a tout, we didn't take a guide, we didn't have assistance from the hotel. We did it all ourselves. And if you do this, you get it for cheaper, because obviously you're not paying a commission on that. You're just doing it first hand. It's only you who pays the money, so there's nobody taking a cut. So if you want to get cheaper tickets, do it this way. Also, we were quite lucky. One of the days we found another Westerner to share with, who was very enthusiastic about the animals, and then we found an Indian family who were very enthusiastic about the animals, so that was great. So if you put your name down, if you're a couple or a few of you, even just one of you, put your name down to share with a few people, and obviously the cost will be spread out evenly. And that's how we visited for less. We also visited Hampi in the south. Hampi's an amazing site. However, we find that many tourists, they just go in, kind of a whirlwind tour. They go in, they stay 1 night, 2 nights. Accommodation is expensive in Hampi, but they pay out because they're only there for 1 or 2 nights. They whiz around all the sites in a rickshaw, which is expensive for the whole day. They just visit, they try and visit as many sites as they can, all in the space of 1 day, and then they leave. This is quite expensive. You're paying for a rickshaw for the whole day, you're paying expensive accommodation, and you're probably not going to spend an awful lot of time in the sites. Now, when we visited Hampi, we spent maybe 4 or 5 nights there. Again, we got a good deal on the accommodation because we offered our business for longer. And also we went to the main temple. Is the Chariot Temple. It's an amazing site, but we paid to go in there once. We took a rickshaw for only half a day once. Again, that kept costs down because we weren't paying for the rickshaw for the whole day. So we only had an expensive day one of those days. Now the other days, all the other sites in Hampi are free to get in because they are considered lesser attractions, and there's loads of wildlife, there's loads of wonderful, the landscape's amazing. They've got these amazing boulders you can climb if you like climbing. There's loads of temples, and it's an amazing place, basically, absolutely amazing, and they're all for free. You don't have to rush around in 1 day. So what I'm saying is travel slowly and really take in each site. Don't just rush to the main temple, don't just rush to get in a rickshaw and go around it. If you've got the time, definitely use the time, because Hampi is wonderful. It's much more than just the Chariot Temple. So that's how we kept costs down. Another way that you can keep costs down is by not staying in the main tourist towns themselves, not staying close to the attractions. Sometimes some attractions there's like one government guest house close by, and obviously these guys, they cash in because they take all of the tourists. When we visited Ajanta and Ellora Caves in the centre of India, we stayed about half an hour away from the site, and we just took a bus in. Again, we stayed in a really a cheaper place, an all Indian place. It wasn't really advertised for backpackers at all. It was much better, it was cheap, it was clean, it was efficient, and we had a really good time. Again, we stayed for like 3 or 4 nights. We got a better deal. Do you see what I'm saying? We ate local, and we took the bus in each day. We didn't take any rickshaws or any taxis. We found out the bus stand, got up early, went each day, and that's how we did it, basically. So there are a few tips that you can follow. So what I'd like to just to kind of bring this to recap, basically travel slowly, don't pay out for the tourist stuff. If you can, pay out for Indian accommodation or less expensive accommodation. Also do your research. Don't expect that just because some guy on a blog or some guy you met or somebody's friend who you knew went to India and they travelled on £15 a day. Don't believe everything you read and everything you see, because that's very unrealistic, and there is a lot of misinformation online. Obviously we have set that budget a little higher because if it's your first time in India, you don't want to be completely struggling and broke for money like some people are. Also, I want to make sure people are safe in India, so don't couch surf and don't get hitch lifts unless you're absolutely fine with doing that. Really just do your research. If you have any questions about budget, about travel, about anything at all, please do get in touch. We would love to hear your feedback and your questions. Okay, so thank you for watching this video. And please tune in again, because I will be talking more about India and more about travel. Thank you very much.